If you are waiting for a green card, if you already have a green card, or if you are helping a family member through the immigration process, you may have seen news recently that USCIS is now requiring interviews again for certain green card applications. Maybe you saw a headline that made you panic. Maybe you thought your approved case would be delayed or reopened. Maybe you are wondering if you will need to go through another interview, even though you already had one. I want you to take a deep breath right now, because my goal in this video is not to scare you. My goal is to explain calmly and clearly what this policy actually means, who it applies to, and most importantly, who it does not apply to. My name is Alex, and I make these videos to help people like you understand immigration news without the panic, without the rumors, and without the confusion. So let's take our time, go through this step by step, and by the end of this video, you will know exactly what is happening and what you need to do, if anything at all. Before we begin, I want to make something very clear. I am not an immigration attorney. I am not a government official. I am not affiliated with USCIS, the Department of Homeland Security, or any federal agency. What I share in this video is information only, explained in simple terms for educational purposes. This is not legal advice. If you have a specific situation or concern about your green card application or immigration status, I always encourage you to speak with a qualified immigration lawyer who can review your personal case. My job here is simply to help you understand what this new policy is about, so you can make informed decisions without fear or confusion. So let's talk about what is actually happening with green card interviews at USCIS. In recent weeks, USCIS has clarified and in some cases expanded its policy regarding in-person interviews for certain green card applications. This does not mean that everyone who applies for a green card will automatically have an interview. It does not mean that people who already have green cards will be called back for new interviews. What it means is that USCIS is requiring interviews for specific categories of green card applications, some of which previously had interviews waived during the pandemic or in certain circumstances. Let me explain what this actually looks like and who is affected. First, it is important to understand that interviews have always been a normal part of many green card applications. If you applied for a green card through marriage to a United States citizen or green card holder, you have most likely already had an interview. If you applied for a green card through employment, you may or may not have had an interview depending on your category and the time period when you applied. If you applied for a green card through family sponsorship, such as a parent sponsoring an adult child, interviews have been required in many cases. What changed during the COVID-19 pandemic is that USCIS temporarily waived interviews for certain categories to reduce backlogs and keep processing moving. Now, as operations have returned to normal, USCIS is reinstating interview requirements for categories where they were always intended to be part of the process. The categories that are most affected by this policy clarification are employment-based green card applications and certain family-based green card applications. Let me break this down more clearly. For employment-based green cards, USCIS has stated that interviews may now be required for adjustment of status applications, which is the process of changing from a temporary visa to a green card while you are already in the United States. This does not mean every employment-based applicant will have an interview, but it means USCIS has the discretion to schedule one if they believe it is necessary. In the past, many employment-based applicants did not have interviews, especially in straightforward cases where the applicant had a clean background and strong documentation. Now more applicants in this category may be called for interviews. For family-based green cards, marriage-based applications have always required interviews, and that has not changed. What is being clarified is that other family categories, such as parents sponsoring children or siblings sponsoring siblings, may also require interviews more frequently than before. Again, this is not a brand new requirement. Interviews have always been allowed in these cases. What is new is that USCIS is using this option more consistently. Now let me be very clear about who this does not apply to. If you already have a green card, you do not need to worry about being called back for a new interview unless you are applying for something new, such as renewing your green card, removing conditions on a conditional green card, or applying for citizenship. This policy is about new applications and pending applications, not about people who already hold green cards. If your green card application was already approved and you received your green card, this policy does not affect you. If you applied for a green card years ago and you are still waiting, you may be subject to this policy if your case has not yet been reviewed or if USCIS decides an interview is needed. But in most cases, if you have been waiting for a long time and your case is just stuck in the backlog, this policy is not going to suddenly add a new step to your process. Let me also address some of the most common myths and fears I have seen circulating online, because misinformation spreads quickly, and I know many of you are worried. Myth number 1: everyone applying for a green card will now be required to have an in-person interview. This is false. Interviews are required for certain categories, but not for all categories. And even within categories that require interviews, USCIS has discretion to waive them in some cases. Myth number 2: if you already had an interview, you will need to have another one. This is also false. If you already completed your interview and you are waiting for a decision, you will not be called back for a second interview unless there is a very specific reason, such as new information coming to light or a need to verify something that was unclear. This is extremely rare. Myth number 3: this policy means USCIS is trying to deny more green card applications. This is not accurate. The purpose of interviews is to verify information, confirm identity, and ensure that applications are legitimate. Interviews are a standard part of the immigration process, and having an interview does not mean your case is in trouble. In fact, many people who have interviews are approved shortly afterward. Myth number 4: if you are called for an interview, it means USCIS suspects fraud or a problem with your case. Again, this is not true. Interviews are routine for many categories. Being scheduled for an interview is a normal step in the process, not a red flag. Now let me talk about what an interview actually involves, because I know some of you may be nervous if you have never been through one before, or if it has been many years since you had an immigration interview. A green card interview is typically conducted at a USCIS field office. You will receive a notice in the mail telling you the date, time, and location of your interview. The notice will also tell you what documents to bring. It is very important that you bring everything requested, including originals and copies of your identification, your passport, your birth certificate, marriage certificate if applicable, employment records, tax returns, and any other documents related to your application. The interview itself is usually conducted by a USCIS officer in a private office. The officer will ask you questions to verify the information in your application. They may ask about your background, your family, your employment, your travel history, and your intentions in the United States. If you applied through marriage, they will ask questions about your relationship to verify that it is genuine. If you applied through employment, they may ask about your job, your employer, and your qualifications. The questions are designed to confirm that everything in your application is true and accurate. The interview is not meant to trick you or catch you in a lie. It is meant to give you an opportunity to explain your case and provide any additional information the officer may need. Most interviews last between 15 minutes and 1 hour, depending on the complexity of your case. Some interviews are very straightforward and end quickly. Others may take longer if there are documents to review or if the officer has follow-up questions. After the interview, the officer may tell you that your case is approved, or they may tell you that they need more time to review your case. In some cases, the officer will request additional documents or evidence, which is called a request for evidence, or RFE. This does not mean your case is denied. It just means the officer needs more information before making a decision. You will have a chance to submit the requested documents, and then your case will be reviewed again. So, what should you actually do if you are waiting for a green card and you are now concerned about this interview policy? First, take a breath. If you have not received an interview notice, there is nothing you need to do right now except continue waiting. Do not call USCIS asking for an interview unless your case is significantly delayed beyond normal processing times. Calling will not speed up your case, and in most situations, the answer will be to keep waiting. Second, if you do receive an interview notice, do not panic. Read the notice carefully. Note the date, time, and location. Note what documents you are asked to bring. Start gathering those documents as soon as possible. Make copies of everything and organize them neatly so you can present them easily during the interview. Third, if you are married and applying for a green card through your spouse, prepare to answer questions about your relationship. This might include how you met, when you got married, where you live, what you do together, and details about your daily life. Be honest and be yourself. The officer is looking for genuine answers, not rehearsed speeches. If you applied through employment, be ready to talk about your job, your role, your qualifications, and your employer. Bring evidence such as pay stubs, tax returns, and a letter from your employer if possible. Fourth, if you have any criminal history, even minor offenses, or if there is anything unusual or complicated in your immigration history, consider speaking with an immigration attorney before your interview. An attorney can help you prepare, can review your case for potential issues, and can even attend the interview with you if you choose. You are allowed to bring an attorney to your interview, and in some cases, it is a very good idea. Fifth, practice answering questions in English if the interview will be conducted in English. If you are not comfortable in English, you are allowed to bring an interpreter, but the interpreter must be impartial and cannot be a family member or someone with an interest in your case. USCIS may provide an interpreter in some cases, but it is better to arrange your own if you need one. Sixth, be on time for your interview. Arrive at least 15 minutes early. Bring your interview notice, your identification, and all requested documents. Dress neatly and professionally. Be polite and respectful to the officer. Answer questions clearly and honestly. If you do not understand a question, it is okay to ask the officer to repeat it or clarify it. Do not guess or make up answers. If you do not know something, it is better to say you do not know than to provide incorrect information. Now let me talk about the broader context of immigration processing right now, because I know many of you are also dealing with long wait times, delays, and uncertainty. The truth is that the immigration system is still experiencing significant backlogs. USCIS has millions of pending cases across all categories. Processing times vary widely depending on the type of application, the service center handling your case, and the complexity of your situation. Some people are waiting months for decisions. Others are waiting years. This is frustrating, I know. You submit your application, you pay your fees, and then you hear nothing for a long time. This is unfortunately normal right now. Adding interview requirements to more cases may slow down processing even further, because scheduling interviews, conducting them, and reviewing the results all take time and resources. USCIS is working to hire more officers and open more appointment slots, but the demand is still higher than the capacity. What this means for you is that patience is essential. If your case is within the normal processing time for your category, there is usually no reason to worry. You can check processing times on the USCIS website by entering your receipt number and your application type. If your case is outside normal processing times, you can submit an inquiry through the USCIS website or by calling the contact center. But in most cases, the answer will be to continue waiting. I also want to address those of you who have conditional green cards, because this is a common source of confusion. If you received a green card through marriage and you have been married for less than 2 years at the time your green card was approved, you received a conditional green card that is valid for 2 years. Before the 2-year mark, you must file a petition to remove the conditions on your green card. This process almost always requires an interview. The new interview policy does not change this. If you have a conditional green card and you are approaching the 2-year mark, you should file your petition to remove conditions on time, and you should expect to be scheduled for an interview. This is normal and has always been required. Let me now speak to the emotional side of all of this, because I know that dealing with immigration is stressful. Waiting for a green card affects every part of your life. It affects your ability to plan for the future, to travel, to feel secure in your home, and to move forward with your goals. Adding an interview to the process can feel like one more obstacle, one more thing to worry about, one more way the process could go wrong. I want you to know that these feelings are valid. You are not overreacting. The immigration process is complicated, slow, and often unclear, and it is natural to feel anxious. But I also want you to know that interviews are a normal part of the process, and for most people, they are not something to fear. If you obtained your green card eligibility honestly, if your application is truthful, and if you have nothing to hide, an interview is simply an opportunity to confirm that. Yes, it requires preparation. Yes, it can be nerve-wracking to sit across from a government officer and answer questions about your life. But it is also a chance for you to present your case in person, to clarify any misunderstandings, and to show that you are a real person with a real story and a legitimate reason to be in the United States. Most people who go through interviews come out feeling relieved that it is done and that the officer was fair and professional. Let me also say this to those of you who are United States citizens, whether by birth or through naturalization, who are watching this video because you are sponsoring a family member or a spouse for a green card. You may be worried that this interview requirement will delay your loved one's case or create problems. The truth is that if you are sponsoring someone through marriage, you are always going to have an interview, so nothing has changed for you. If you are sponsoring a parent, child, or sibling, there is now a higher chance of an interview, but this is not necessarily a bad thing. It is an opportunity to demonstrate that your relationship is genuine and that your sponsorship is legitimate. Be prepared, be honest, and trust the process, and trust. So let me bring all of this together and summarize what you really need to know. USCIS has clarified and expanded its interview requirements for certain green card applications, particularly employment-based and some family-based categories. This does not mean everyone will have an interview, and it does not mean people who already have green cards will be called back. Interviews have always been part of the immigration process, and they are being used more consistently now as USCIS returns to normal operations after the pandemic. If you are waiting for a green card and you have not received an interview notice, there is nothing you need to do except continue waiting. If you receive an interview notice, prepare carefully, gather your documents, and approach the interview with honesty and confidence. Interviews are not designed to deny applications. They are designed to verify information and ensure the integrity of the immigration system. Most people who have interviews are approved, especially if their applications are straightforward and truthful. If you have any concerns about your case, if there are complicating factors, or if you simply want guidance on how to prepare, speaking with an immigration attorney is always a good idea. Do not let fear control your decisions or your peace of mind. Stay informed, stay prepared, and trust that the process, while slow and sometimes frustrating, is structured and fair. If this video helped you understand what is happening with green card interviews, I would be grateful if you would let me know in the comments. Share your thoughts, your questions, or your own experiences with immigration interviews. This channel exists to help people like you, and your feedback helps me know what topics to cover next. If you found this information useful, Consider staying connected so you can stay informed about immigration news and policy changes without the panic and without the confusion. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for trusting me with your time and your concerns. Please take care of yourself, take care of your family, and remember that being informed is the best way to navigate the immigration process with confidence. You are going to be okay. Stay calm, stay prepared, and I will see you in the next video.